Good afternoon. It's Kumar Dattatreyan with the Meridian Point. And today we're joined by Sevak Markarian, a transformation leader who's cracked the code on one of business's toughest challenges, turning strategy into action. With a rare combination of a doctorate in organizational leadership, an MBA and a Master of Science in Engineering Physics, Sevak brings both analytical rigor and human insight into his work. He's known for operationalizing OKRs in ways that actually drive performance, not just create more meetings. Working with Fortune 100 companies like HP, AT&T, Chevron, and Kaiser Permanente, Sevak bridges the gap between executive vision and frontline execution, helping organizations move from strategic planning sessions to measurable cultural transformation. So without further ado, let me invite Sevak to the stage. Hi, Sevak. It's great to have you on.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, Sevak, most organizations have brilliant strategies that just die in implementation, right? I mean, I'm sure you've had that experience. I certainly have. You've made a career out of closing that gap. What's the most common breakdown that you see between when leadership sets strategy and when teams actually execute on that strategy?
And Kumar, I really appreciate the question and the opportunity to be here, especially to talk about leadership in chaos and how well-crafted OKRs can help this organization in VUCA environments, which stands for volatility, uncertainty, complex, and ambiguity environments. So as you mentioned in my introduction, my career has been taking few unexpected turns. Each of those has been deepened my understanding of today's leaders' struggle and how to translate the strategy into real and measurable outcomes. So to help our audience to feel the gravity of this challenge, I usually use a very dramatic analogy, and because it really sticks. So imagine yourself, you're in a hospital and a surgeon walks out to a family and says, the operation was successful, but unfortunately, the patient didn't survive. How you would conclude this surgery? What you would say to the surgeon? Would you kudo him? Would you say good job? Or what you would say? Because he thinks his surgery was.
Yeah, that's pretty stark visual metaphor. Yeah, that would be a total failure.
And unfortunately, that happens today in many organizations. Our leaders start celebrating their activities, their efforts, the success of execution of the plan, while they miss the actually outcome expectation for business needs. So strategy looks like great on the paper, but it dies in implementation because there is no much alignment around the real impact of it. So.
You mentioned alignment. So, I mean, I think that's a key word. And I wonder how important that is and how you achieve that alignment between, the people that create the strategy and the people that actually execute the strategy.
Great question again. So that's where the OKR, a good OKR, can bridge that gap. So OKRs is not just another framework. It actually is a discipline that helps us to refocus back to teams and what truly matters. So a good OKR can help to clarify the outcomes, create transparency across the teams, and give leaders a continuous feedback loop to adapt and continue to shift the project or the outcome. So, yes, please.
I mean, I don't know how many of the viewers know what OKRs are, so maybe it would be good to just give a brief primer. What does it stand for? Where did it come from? It is not. You say it's more than a framework. So can you sort of elaborate on that a little bit?
Great. So OKR stands for Objective Key Results, and it became very popular when Google started to bring, they were doing a lot of great work in 90s, but they were not really moving the needle. So they brought a person who wrote the book, What Matters Most, John Deere, to help them to make their goals more tangible and more
Mhm.
impactful. So when he came over, he started to look at a lot of work was focused on the goals, but not to objectives. So to give our audience about the difference of the goals and objectives, so I usually use this example. The companies usually put their goals such as build a fuel pump prototype, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes they even go further. They say reduce fuel pump weight by 10% by creating that prototype.
Mhm.
John Doerr did it just translate that the goals to something meaningful and purposeful where it touches the customer. For example, it says like reduce fuel consumption by developing a light fuel pump prototype. Now, the increasing or decreasing is the what is the purpose. And another analogy I use for changing the purpose to the need. And that's a great conversation I had the other day with one of my teams. They said, Sevak, we have goals. Why we need OKRs? And I asked them, what is the goal? He says, finish the job. That's the goal. Finish all the user story or tasks, right? And my question was, why we need to do that? Is that a need? He goes, yeah, if do not finish those one, we will not get our promotions, we will not get our bonuses, we will lose our work. Now I asked this question, is that a need? And the answer was, yes, that's the need. And I said, there's a difference between purpose and need. And he asked me to elaborate on that one. And I said, so another analogy. There are 74% chance a deer runs away from a lion, Kumar.
Mhm.
Do you know why that is?
Why? I'm surprised it's only 74%.
Yeah, there are 74%. The reason is the lion hunts for the need, but the deer runs for the purpose to
Uh,
survive. So,
Interesting.
so where I was going with this is if you make the work purposeful for your employee, there is more statistic chance you will succeed.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the way you put that, and also it helps me frame the word alignment a little better in context of how the doers, if you will, the people that execute the strategy, if they're aligned to the purpose, they can operate more or less autonomously because they know where they're going. They know the destination. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. So that's why a good OKR is called bidirectional OKRs.
Mm,
Usually goals are top down. The executive put the goals for you from the top and you're supposed to deliver those. Sometimes you do put your personal goals, but not necessarily the goals for the organization or your team. So bidirectional OKRs is while executive put their OKRs to you, the teams create their own OKRs.
hmm
For example, by doing this prototype, I think we could achieve 10% or 9% of maybe not the weight, right? Maybe we do some optimization in regards of the process time. Now, where this alignment comes in, Kumar, here is the the executive thought with their knowledge, they thought they could reduce the weight and achieve the goal. But the team thinks we could improve the time of the process to achieve
mm
that goal.
mm
Now, when you bring those two OKRs together, a good discussion happens here. Is
mm.
this really the weight or is it the process time? And that's where alignment comes in.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And so I like the way you put that, a bi-directional system, right? So it's not just a top-down set of goals, like go do this with maybe a limited understanding of the why behind it. There are conversations that happen when you when you create OKRs, the objectives with key results, conversations at every level of the organization. And ideally, these OKRs cascade, but they're not tightly coupled. They're more loosely coupled. So the people that are doing the work have autonomy in how they do that work in order to meet the goal.
Yes.
Do you see that? I'm sure you coach to that in some way, right?
Yes. And guess what autonomy brings in? Innovation. When let the team to talk about how they could achieve those OKR in their understanding. And guess what? The team knows much better than executive about the product. So let the team innovate how they can do the work, right? So obviously they might executive, they have some ideas, but the team is the day-to-day on the work, and they know better than leaders how to achieve those efficiencies.
Right.
So yes, bidirectional helps alignment, but also creates some innovation in the organization.
Yeah, I love that. So you have this fascinating background, Sevak, engineering, physics, computer science roots, and yet you ended up focusing on organizational leadership and culture. How does that analytical engineering mindset actually help you solve what are fundamentally human problems in organizations?
So, Kumar, throughout my career, I have helped organizations to strengthen their performance, modernize their operations, navigate through complex transformations, and supply chain, HR, AI initiatives, merger and acquisitions, and various enterprise technologies. And over time, I have developed a passion for connecting leaders with the condition of their teams need to deliver meaningful, measurable impacts. Now, but the real turn point for me was when I did my dissertation for my organizational leadership doctorate. I discovered something very fundamental. Most leaders focus heavily on the mindset. And we have heard this many, many times in our agile transformation, right? Changing the mindset. But what they overlook is far more critical factors. And that's the employee state of mind in the very moment they are asked to perform. So while changing the mindset is crucial, but if you do not focus on state of mind of the employees, you will not be able to get the most optimization of the transformation. So let's look at Webster, how they defined mindset versus state of mind.
I was just going to ask that.
Yeah, good. So Webster says mindset is a person's established set of attributes or belief relatively stable over time. Again, underline it, relatively stable over time. However, state of mind is someone's present emotional and cognitive condition in the real time that experiencing the influence of how they respond to pressure, collaboration, innovation, or the challenges they have. So while the mindset helps when the person look at the things in the long term, but on day-to-day work, we have to focus on state of mind.
It's interesting. So you can have the right mindset, or a mindset that's more attuned to fast failure, experimentation, being open to change, and all those things. But state of mind is more important, because if there's a lot of stressors in the environment, all those things may go out the window, and you may react in ways that are contrary to your overarching mindset. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Absolutely correct. So all of us wake up in the morning, we come to our job because we want to do our best. But the moment we wake up, or the moment we come to the office, if that state of mind changes, there are some psychologists safety, and then I'm going to talk more about that one into my dissertation, when I interviewed about 20 executives about what is the most important behavior for a successful leadership during the VUCA environment. They said number one was, guess what, Kumar? What was number one? They said is most important.
I would say mindset, but I don't think that's the right answer.
No, it is
Is
the
it? Okay.
mindset. But what sets the mindset is the psychological safety.
Okay.
If
Yeah, that
you
makes a lot of
have,
sense. Yeah.
Mhm. If you have the right moment when you come in the morning, when you receive an email about potential changes of the organization without explanation, or without somebody is doing something, or some decision is made before alignment, guess what? The state of mind of that person changed. No matter if that person has the right mindset to collaborate, to use certain frameworks, but that moment, everything changes.
Right.
Yeah. So when you said about the engineering, so we all as engineers, we are like to do analysis, complex system,
Hmm.
identify root causes, understand the variables. But at the end, there is another system that is more important than those, and that's the human system.
Yeah.
And to reveal that one, doesn't matter what we design. We need to make sure the people have the right mindset and they don't have this overwhelming, threatening confusions that's going to fail the system no matter what.
Right, right. So I get your point. I get the distinction that, sort of the state of mind is a reflection of the psychological safety that they feel they have in executing the work that they've been asked to do. And of course, you can have the most perfect mindset going into work, but if that mindset is overshadowed by the threats that they face, or the perceived threats that they face, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
They're not going to
Absolutely.
be able to think and innovate and come up with the great ideas that they would if they operate in a psychologically safe environment.
Mhm.
So connecting this back to OKRs, right? So you talk a lot about in our conversation prior to this podcast, you talked about operationalizing OKRs.
Mhm.
So there's a big difference between doing OKRs, writing them, creating the KRs, and having sort of collaborative sessions that do that. There's a big difference between that and actually have it transform how an organization actually works. So walk us through what operationalizing OKRs really means.
So I'm sure you have heard many times in our agile transformation, doing agile versus being agile, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of organizations they are creating lots of trainings and trying to be agile in their day-to-day work, but they fail. And then usually we as the coaches, we come in and we look at it and say, like, yes, you are doing all agile activities, or maybe Scrum or framework activities, but are you really having agility outcomes expected in your activities?
Mhm.
The same thing goes to OKRs. So a lot of operational OKRs I have seen, again, there are goals that are not purposeful, there are work to be done. And I don't see much difference of those OKRs than the goals.
Mhm.
And then when people looked at those ones and they don't have some outcome expectation, they said like improve customer experience. Okay. How? Why? What percentage you think? What is the benchmark you have? What is today customer experience? What survey do you have to prove that their customer experience has been improved at the end of the year? So a real OKRs needs to be having all the smart, specific, measurable, all those attributes to it, right? So we
Mhm.
need to make sure to operational OKRs, you start early in the year, not by, if this is yearly OKRs, I usually suggest to have a yearly and quarterly based OKR so that you could checkpoint every quarter. Now, you start early for operationalize this. You ask from leaders and executive what is about OKRs, and hopefully you have a good workshop with them so they are not simple goals. Then you do the same thing with the teams, the leaders of the teams. You get them tell us what you think our OKR should be next year, based on your
Mhm.
understanding, based on where the company is going. And then you bring those OKRs together, Kumar. You bring them together and you find the gaps, you find misalignments, and hopefully there are alignments. But if not, you make sure one has the same handshake with the other one. Otherwise, doesn't matter what leader says, the team would not believe in that OKRs, and we will go back to hold the purpose. They go for a need to keep their job or their promotion, but not the work. So that's how I usually operationalize. I start 2-3 weeks earlier, 2-3 months earlier than end of the
Mhm.
year, working with the leadership, working with the team, doing the workshops of OKRs, and then by beginning of the years, we put what our objectives is. Now
Yeah.
the team has direction.
But I'm sure that there's a feedback mechanism that makes this
Mhm.
more
Yes.
um, tangible, more useful, more impactful, and so on, right? And so, I mean, I've worked with OKRs in companies before, and I've seen them done well, and I've seen them done not so well. And I
Mhm.
think one of the differences that separates the companies that do them well and the ones that don't is the feedback mechanism, the feedback loop, and learning from the OKRs that you've created, how valid they are, how easy is it to collect the data to inform the KRs that you have, and so on. What's
Mhm.
been your experience, and how do you help companies sort of move into that bucket of companies that use them and use them well, where it actually has an impact?
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely correct. You need to measurable OKRs. So make it more automatic that you could easily extract the data. You could present it, if not daily base, weekly base, monthly base. And you're supposed to bring the OKRs to leadership as well as the leads, at least the data visibility for monthly, how you are progressing, right?
Hmm.
So as you build the OKRs of, let's say, 15% improvement, you need to put some quarterly OKRs of how you will achieve that 15% by end of the year. Just can't go blind and saying like, oh, by end of the year, I'm gonna see if I achieve 15%. Now, and that's where I would say there are when I build a OKR, so I have objectives, the key results, and I have one more thing called actions. Actions are
Mm.
small work that we need to do in order to achieve those key results. And for example,
Mm.
in the prototyping, could be establish a code, could be collaborating with a vendor, right? Whatever it is, I put those ones. And then every month we do a measurement of did we finish those tasks in order to deliver that ultimate, the percentage that we asked for. So you manage your OKRs through actions, tasks, and those are presented monthly to the team as well leadership to track if you
Yeah.
are going to achieve that goal.
Yeah, it certainly does help create focus around the objective, right? What
Yeah,
is the objective? We're trying to improve X by Y.
yeah.
And we know that we've done so through these key results.
Hmm.
So it provides that kind of focus that allows teams to really behave more autonomously and innovate the solutions that help meet the needs. I have some questions from the audience. This one is an interesting one from Adam. Interested to learn if it's recommended that compensation and performance review should be linked to OKRs, and if so, how do you prevent folks from gaming results?
Yeah, yeah. That's a very good question. And actually, Adam, thanks for that observation. The recommendation is to not connect the performance to or compensation to OKR. Guess what? Because exactly what you just said, it will be gained.
Mm.
It will let the team so to not stretch themselves to the best of their performance. So they're gonna put their purpose to the need, not their vision, what they want to achieve, right? And we all know where does that goes when everybody only focuses for the need, right? There is no collaboration. Everybody is looking for their own best and a lot of other things. So a true OKR is not connected to your performance. However, it's very important that you measure your employee engagement through OKRs. Now, employee engagement, a caveat here I want to add there, is not employee experience. A lot of companies, HR, focusing on employee experience. And just elaborate.
How would you define the difference?
Yes, difference. So let me give you an example. I have a very senior principal person who did not collaborate with everyone, didn't want to work with everyone, heads down. If he was out of office, nobody could do his job. He was not cross-training and such. And previously when they did the survey, he said, I have best employee experience because nobody kind of touched him and nobody argued him. When we put them in collaboration, in a team, cross-training stuff, suddenly his employee experience went down because he didn't like it. So employee experience is once the employee's perception of his own work. Employee engagement, when you measure of your work of the employee based on how you collaborate with others. So that's where another thing that you have to bring in this transformation of OKRs. You have to bring in change management. You need to bring the HR in the process, and you're gonna say like, hey, we're gonna go together of implementing OKRs. Lots of those principles that I talked about, they're not gonna like it. Those because they were saying, leave me alone. Now you're asking them, hey, create a purpose of what you do. And he goes, no, I'm fine with my need. I was getting a lot of promotions. I was getting a lot of bonuses before. Now with purpose is different. So that's where employee engagement is not equal to employee experience.
That's an interesting way to put at it. So the experience is your lived experience at work, and the desk, the computer, the things that you interact with to do your work. And I like the way you put that. And then you take that experience and you change it. You say, now you're going to be on an agile team. You're going to work with these people. You're going to meet every day for a stand-up, and you're going to go to all these meetings, and now that experience becomes totally different, right? There's little time for that person, that individual, to adjust to this new experience, so their engagement may go down. Where before they were more engaged, they were engaged in the work, they were producing good results and all that great stuff. Now their engagement has gone down because they're being forced to do something that they're not used to. Is that did I get that right?
Absolutely, you're on the spot exactly, and that's how you differentiate. And going back to Adam's great question, you don't want to connect employee engagement to employee experience, because performance is more is about his own experience, how he's going to be doing himself stuff. We are talking about really how you create autonomy and an outcome-driven organization using OKRs.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. There's another question from Adam I'm going to post up here. It's about using AI to help you connect the work that's been completed to the OKRs, I guess, right? Correct. So they have AI connectivity, suggest using to create drafts, refine, track, and report on OKRs. What's your experience with this?
They have. I do have a great colleague that is developing a great AI tool right now that extract all the information from tools such as Jira, or you could be using version 1 or whatever you are using, SAP Cloud. So extract all the data and then connects to your measurements that you put, and it displays status of your current tasks. Could be if there are blockers from Jira, or if you are percentage of the user stories completed. Even it shows like a lot of data in regards of the hygiene of your data. Could be hygiene of your Jira, that acceptance criteria are missing, or user stories are not connected to a meaningful epics. The other thing that you could bring at, you could actually use AI to connect your OKRs to epics. And then epics obviously can have user stories and such, meaning like if I finish this epics, I will be able to achieve actions that require for my OKRs. And by doing that, it's every status can be automatically comes in, and you could see the status of your actions for OKR through AI.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, there's a slight lag in the connection, just so apologies to people that are watching live. Hopefully it doesn't affect the. I mean, I understood everything you were trying to say, so that's a good thing. So we're getting towards the top of the end of our time together, but I wanted to end the show with a few questions, lightning round questions, just to get your quick responses to some of these. Maybe not so quick. We'll see.
Sure.
So here's the first one. So if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing that would make organizational transformation happen faster, what would it be?
Having leaders more engaged into transformation and being not only to output driven, but also outcome driven, because transformation takes time and requires a lot of attention.
Wonderful. So for a mid-level manager caught between executive strategy and the team's reality, what's the one thing they should do tomorrow to start bridging that gap?
Middle manager is usually the one that are stuck in the transformation because they're not doer and they're not asker. So what I would say as a middle manager, try to get in there, understand what is happening. Don't be successful in your role, be valuable in your role. Now, is it through management, through whatever you do, but just don't be a person in the middle. Try to value to transformation.
Yeah, I love that. When you work with a Fortune 100, 500 client, doesn't matter, what's the first metric or signal that tells you the transformation is actually working?
So I usually use the concept of DORA metrics, which is mostly of the outcome driven. Define of what is the end product is supposed to help you. And you measure that one. Don't be lost in the small data, such as, am I getting burned down of user stories, right? Because as Adam said, you could easily game on. So the next one, if you are rewarding teams based on story points, guess what? The 3-pointer next time will be 8-pointer, right? So make sure that while those measurement is good for the team, but at the end, you measure yourself to objectives. Is your customer really improving the experience? Is your fuel tank is really being efficient with 15%, regardless if it's weight or process? So focus on the outcome and not the output.
Okay, wonderful. All right, one last question, maybe a last question. With AI and rapid technological change, how do you see the role of organizational development evolving? What skills are most important for leaders in the next, say, 3 to 5 years?
We already see that, right? So a lot of processes are changing to the repeatable works is moving to more AI. Now you have to think about, how do I create more innovative organization? The companies and organizations who is going to win in next coming 5 years is not the ones that are keep doing the same thing, is the ones that going to be innovating of doing. I use this one. We are not asking, AI is not asking you do different things. AI is asking you do things differently.
Yeah.
So you have as a leader, product manager, whatever from organization, and even organization design working with human, you have to think about what I'm going to do differently than our competitors. That's what key.
Love it. All right, one last one, and then I'm going to
I
turn it
love
to
this
you.
question. So
Yeah,
I enjoy it and I learn that also. So please go ahead.
that's awesome. So what's harder to solve, a complex engineering, a physics problem, or getting a leadership team to actually collaborate, and why?
Oh, definitely. So here, I did a lot of. I also work in reactors with the nuclears, and I did a lot of virology and such in my past. I have 2 publication of similar virus of COVID. Guess what? Those were much easier, Kumar, because there is an answer at the end.
Yeah,
The virus looks like what the virus is. Yes, it's hard to get there, but the virus, it is virus. Now, the thing is with human, everything changes. The mindset changes, the state of mind changes. So it's a dynamic work. And then if you do the collaboration and if you do all the impacts, and that's what I said, VUCA environment, the leaders tomorrow, I want to go back to last thing. The leaders tomorrow are not the leaders who are good, they are sensitive, they know their stuff. The leaders tomorrow the successful leaders tomorrow are the leaders who are adaptive leaders.
yeah,
They can adapt quickly, and the same thing with the employees. The AI is going to change. So if not adaptive employee, I think you're going to have a hard time to find a job in 10 years from now.
totally agree. Do you have any questions for me before we end our show?
Well, I would like to, let's see. So you have been working with various leadership challenges, and you have been working with also several high-tech transformation companies, right? So tell me, how do you deal with a leader when doesn't want to transform? They are happy with they are because
Yeah.
what they said is they're gonna retire in next coming few years.
Yeah, that's a tough one, for sure. Yeah, I certainly have been there. I think what you have to do, at least in my experience, you have to find what their triggers are. What they may be willing to change, right? Rather than unwilling to change. So there's resistance, and when you sense resistance, maybe there is a lever you just haven't explored yet, a question you haven't asked yet to understand where they are in their work, in their profession, and in the things that they like about their work or don't like about their work. So, I take a very Socratic approach to understanding and developing a relationship with leaders and companies that I work with, just to understand where they are. What is it that they're resisting, and what is it that they fear about the change that they see happening around them. It doesn't always work because sometimes people are just who they are, right? They are further away from that, their willingness to change. They're close to retirement, whatever it might be. But that's what I do.
Yep.
Anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share?
I think this was a great conversation. I really appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts. Honestly, these topics that you have, Kumar, are required hours and hours conversations.
Yes.
So there is nothing that you could squeeze in a short time. Each of us has many years experience of dealing with the different situations. But I hope the audience and yourself got what is most important and why OKR is so crucial for any organization to change from need to purpose, to go from mindset to state of mind, and to do something good in this world, just not keeping yourself busy.
Yeah, I agree. And for those of you who are still watching, thanks for sticking around to the end of this show. And for those of you that asked some questions, thank you for those. I hope you enjoyed the show. And you're right, there's so much more we can explore. And I'd love to have you back, maybe on some of the nuances that we didn't cover, because I had a whole bunch of questions that I didn't ask.
I look forward to that.
Yeah, but we'll have to talk about maybe having you back on and taking a different angle to these topics. So thanks again for coming on the show, and I appreciate you being here. Thanks for all of you who watched, and if you want to get a hold of Sevak to get some counsel or just have a conversation, his details are in the show notes. He's written a bunch of publications, so please look him up, and you can always contact me as well for anything that you need. Thanks a lot again for watching. See you all next week.
It was a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.